I always thought betrayals were loud. Arguments flaring up over dinner, slamming doors, curses thrown like grenades. But this one started with a glint on the bathroom floor. It was early. The kind of early where the house is cloaked in silence, the sky a pale shade of blue-gray, and the only sound is the occasional creak of old wood beneath your feet. I padded toward the bathroom in that blurry, autopilot state, the kind where you're not quite awake, but not asleep either. That's when I saw it. A silver circle of foil, no bigger than a fingertip, nestled against the bath mat like a forgotten coin. My first thought was that one of the kids had been playing with something shiny. But as I picked it up and turned it over, I saw the tiny impression, too. Uphill backing, the kind that comes off when you push one through the plastic sheet. Tuesday. That's what it meant. Today was Wednesday. It didn't take long for the context to snap into place. Years ago, Vanessa used to keep her birth control pack in the medicine cabinet, before I got the vasectomy. Back when we still had long talks about whether or not to have a third child. We decided two was enough. I remember how relieved she was, how we both laughed nervously in the waiting room, how she held my hand and said, "Now we can just enjoy life." So why, years later, would a Tuesday birth control foil be on the floor of our bathroom? My heart slowed, then sped up again, the kind of pulsing you feel in your fingertips. I placed the foil back exactly where I'd found it and sat on the closed toilet lid, staring at the same tile I'd stepped on for a decade. And suddenly, it didn't feel like my bathroom anymore. I didn't say anything to Vanessa that morning. She was still asleep, one arm tossed across my side of the bed like nothing had changed. I watched her for a moment longer than usual before waking the kids for school. James and Sonia, 8 and 6, were their usual energetic selves. They tugged at my sleeves, argued over cereal, and whined about jackets, utterly oblivious to the storm brewing behind my calm face. At work, I couldn't focus. My job as a mechanical engineer usually absorbed me entirely, but that day my spreadsheets and CAD models were just gray noise. I started researching pill types, and then slowly, with a hesitancy that made my fingers tremble, I typed signs of cheating spouse into the search bar. That night, after dinner and bedtime stories, I watched Vanessa as she folded laundry. She was humming, casually smiling, asking if we should do takeout Friday. I responded with a nod, heart beating fast in my chest, hearing her voice but not hearing the words. Her laugh came too easy. Her hands moved too naturally. Was it all real? The next few days were a blur of internal calculations. I told myself I needed proof, not assumptions. And when my Amazon package arrived, voice recorders, miniature cameras, phone mirroring software, I felt like someone else had ordered them. But I installed them anyway. One camera in the bathroom, discreet, behind the hand towel. One in the bedroom, angled just right. The recorder went under the driver's seat of her car. By Sunday, I'd cloned her phone. I told myself if I was wrong, I'd apologize in my mind, carry the guilt, and let it go. But if I was right, by Tuesday, I had a hard drive full of video footage. I waited until the house was empty, Vanessa at her office, the kids at school, and opened the files. It didn't take long. There she was on the bathroom camera, 3 days in a row, reaching into the cabinet for a blister pack. And there it was, birth control. No question. She didn't hesitate. She took it like it was as normal as brushing her teeth. My chest felt hollow. I clicked to the bedroom camera next. It was mostly mundane, her folding laundry, scrolling through her phone, changing clothes. But then on Friday night, something else. Vanessa had told me she was going to bed early, headache. I stayed downstairs watching a movie with my headphones. The footage showed her dressed in jeans and a tight-fitting top, one I hadn't seen in years. She looked in the mirror, adjusted her hair, applied lipstick. Then she left. Just left. She came back around 1:47 a.m., disheveled. Her makeup smudged. She moved slowly, tiptoeing like a teenager breaking curfew. She undressed, showered, and slipped into bed beside me. I watched it all twice. Then I sat there with my elbows on the desk, hands pressed to my face. The kind of exhaustion that settles deep in your spine took over. It wasn't just that she lied. It was that she could lie so easily. With no hesitation. No sign of guilt. Still, I needed more. A name. A face. A reason. That's when I found the journal. I wasn't looking for it. It was pure accident. I had gone into the guest room to find an old box of our wedding photos. Something about needing to remind myself this life had been real once. The box was there, dust-covered and untouched. But behind it, tucked deep into the drawer of a storage bench, was a navy blue moleskine journal. It had a worn elastic strap, the kind she used to keep for sketching. My first instinct was to respect her privacy, but that instinct died quickly. I opened it. The first entry was dated nearly 11 months ago. I can still feel the way he touched the back of my hand under the table at dinner. How easy it is to get lost in someone who looks at you like you're the only woman in the room. My fingers trembled. I kept reading. Tonight, we met again. A different hotel this time. I told him I couldn't stay long, but we both knew I would. He always orders red wine. Always kisses my collarbone first. Page after page after page. Descriptions. Times. Places. Emotions. Comparisons. Intimate details that didn't belong to me. Private thoughts I was never meant to see. The journal wasn't a confession. It was a celebration of the secret life she'd been nurturing behind my back. There was no remorse in her writing. Only passion, curiosity, guilt, when it appeared, was fleeting, more like an afterthought than a weight. I closed the journal, breathing hard. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped it. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Every picture on the wall felt like it mocked me. The smiles in our wedding photo. The kids' drawings on the fridge. All of it suddenly felt staged. I put the journal back exactly where I found it. Then I picked up my phone and opened the GPS tracker app. Her location pinged on the east side of town. A restaurant I didn't recognize. Probably her lunch break. Probably sitting across from him right now, legs touching under the table. I didn't know what I was going to do next. But I knew one thing. This wasn't going to end with quiet tears and counseling sessions. I was going to read every last word in that journal. And then I was going to make her lover's name famous in our little town. Not with violence. Not with rage. But with something far more devastating. Truth. I waited until everyone was asleep before I returned to the journal. That night, the house was too quiet. Even the wind outside seemed hesitant, as if holding its breath. Vanessa had kissed me goodnight, her lips brushing mine with that same worn tenderness she'd offered for years. She curled into bed, back to me, murmured something about being tired, and drifted off within minutes. But I didn't sleep. I lay there in the dark, waiting for her breathing to even out. When it did, I slipped out of bed, careful not to stir the mattress. The hallway creaked beneath my feet, and each step felt like a betrayal. Of what? I wasn't sure. Her trust. My own denial. Back in the guest room, I retrieved the journal, heart pounding so loudly I was sure it would wake the whole house. I opened it, this time determined not to skim, but to study. There was no mention of a name, no clear identifier. The man she wrote about was only ever referred to as him, he, or my escape. It read more like a novella than a confession. The entries were lyrical, sometimes even poetic, but they carried a razor-sharp clarity. She knew what she was doing, and she didn't hate herself for it. Each entry pulled me deeper into the reality I didn't want to accept. Hotel rooms booked mid-week under fake names. Lunches that turned into hours of hiding in parked cars. Gifts, small, deliberate things. A book he said reminded him of her. A necklace with a pendant shaped like a crescent moon. Red wine and steak at the same restaurant, again and again. Then, a line that stopped me cold. He brought the file again. This time, I actually read it. I didn't understand all the numbers, but I know he trusts me with it. Said he had to hide it from his partner. A file. A partner. My mind flipped through the people in Vanessa's world. She was in marketing, worked with small businesses, helped them shape their branding, run social media. A far cry from clandestine documents and secret files. But I remembered a name she'd dropped once or twice. Always casually. Always with a kind of amused fondness. Derek. She never said it like it meant anything. Derek's being a pain again. Or Derek keeps pushing for that logo redesign. I thought he was just another annoying client. But now that name felt radioactive. I placed a sticky note on that page and kept reading. More nights. More moments. More whispers on the page that told me this wasn't just lust. It had started that way, adrenaline and curiosity, but it had grown teeth. She wrote about him with the kind of longing that scared me. This wasn't a fling. It was something far worse. I don't know when it happened, one entry read, but I think I might be falling for him. I shouldn't be. I don't want to. But it's like I've opened a window I can't close. I set the journal down and just sat there. The walls felt too close. My body too heavy. I stared at my hands like they didn't belong to me. Falling for him. How do you compete with something like that? I didn't remember going back to bed. Just that I woke up late, the sun already high. Vanessa was gone. The kids were eating cereal, half watching cartoons. I moved on autopilot, poured coffee I didn't drink, read emails I didn't process. I looked up Derek's name on her company's website. There he was. Derek Foster, business strategy consultant. Smiling, confident, a little too polished. Hair swept back in that carefully messy way. Mid-40s maybe. Just enough gray at the temples to look experienced, not old. I clicked on his LinkedIn. Dozens of mutual connections. A man with a network. Someone who knew how to charm people. He wasn't better than me, but I could see how someone like Vanessa could be drawn to him, especially if she felt like our life had gotten too quiet. That evening, I told Vanessa I had to meet a client in the city. I didn't. Instead, I parked near the restaurant mentioned repeatedly in her journal, Marlowe's. A quaint place with soft lighting and old wood floors, tucked away from the main road. I waited, and at 7:18 p.m. she arrived. Hair down, red lipstick, something she hadn't worn for me in years. She didn't look around nervously. She looked excited, like someone stepping into the part of their life that made them feel alive. He showed up 4 minutes later. Derek Foster. They didn't touch, not obviously, but they sat close. She laughed in that way I hadn't heard in months. Threw her head back a little, touched her neck absently. Little signs. She was in it, fully. I took photos. Enough to prove the pattern. When I got home, I avoided her. Said I was tired. That I had a headache. She bought it without blinking. The next day, I took the day off and visited a lawyer. I told him I wasn't ready to file for divorce. Not yet, but I needed to know my options. He was a quiet man with sharp eyes who nodded more than he spoke. After reviewing the facts, he gave me 2 words that stuck with me. Controlled leverage. If I wanted to expose the affair, I could. But if I wanted to use it first, to trap her in a corner she couldn't crawl out of, I had to be smart. You need to hit her where she doesn't expect it, he said. Not emotionally. Strategically. So I went back to the journal. This time, I searched for details. Places. Timelines. Mentions of gifts, documents, anything that could tie back to Derek's business dealings. And there it was again, the file. An entry dated 4 weeks ago. He showed me the spreadsheet again. Said his partner would flip if he knew. But we both laughed about it. It's not real fraud, he said. Just creative restructuring. Fraud. The words sat like ice in my stomach. I made copies of the journal pages that mentioned it. Scanned them. Saved them on an encrypted drive. Then I contacted someone I hadn't spoken to in years, Brandon. He was a friend from college who'd gone into corporate compliance, now working with a federal oversight agency. I told him I had a friend whose spouse might be mixed up in something illegal. I didn't name names. Not yet, but I sent him a redacted copy of the journal page. Within 2 days, he messaged me back. This might be bigger than you think. The words hit me hard. I was standing on the edge of something I hadn't intended. This wasn't just a crumbling marriage anymore. This was turning into a house of cards that could bring both of them down. I didn't feel victorious. Not yet, but I could feel the gears shifting. That night, I watched Vanessa sleep again. Her breathing was soft, peaceful. I whispered into the darkness, not loud enough to wake her. You have no idea what's coming. The air in our house had started to shift, not noticeably to anyone else, but I felt it. Vanessa still moved through our home like nothing had changed, still kissed me good morning, asked about my meetings, tucked the kids in with their favorite songs. But I could feel the gap between us widening like a hairline crack in glass that no one sees until it splinters the whole pane. I wasn't ready to confront her, not yet. Not when the leverage was still growing. After Brandon's message, this might be bigger than you think. I knew I was walking a very thin line. Derek Foster was more than just a lover. He was the kind of man who'd grown comfortable believing his charm outweighed consequence. He'd clearly told Vanessa about creative restructuring, shared files with her, trusted her to be his secret keeper. But what he didn't count on was that she'd pour every illicit detail into a journal and that her husband would one day find it. I knew I needed more than just a few photos and half-sketched phrases. So I planted a new recorder, this time in the guest room. I had already noticed Vanessa went in there once a week, usually under the pretense of organizing our old storage boxes. The journal wasn't the only thing she kept there, and I was starting to suspect that was where her burner phone lived. The recorder caught everything. The first time I listened to the playback, my throat tightened so hard I thought I might pass out. Her voice was soft, laced with longing, and his, smooth, confident, almost bored. "I miss your mouth," Derek said on the call, and I heard Vanessa laugh softly. "I've been thinking about that night at Marlowe's, you under the table, being so quiet. I nearly lost it." She answered, "It's the only thing that makes me feel like I'm not fading." That word hit me hard. Fading. Had I really let her slip that far? Or had she just chosen a different kind of attention? Either way, it didn't matter now. She had crossed a line, and I was building my case, one thread at a time. By the following Thursday, Brandon sent me an encrypted document. I opened it in the dim glow of my home office. The kids asleep. Vanessa at a late client dinner. "Derek Foster is under preliminary investigation," Brandon's message read. "The financial advisory firm he co-manages has red flags. Offshore accounts, discrepancies in quarterly filings, suspicious withdrawals. The journal you found could be the key. But we need the actual document. Not scans. Originals. And we need it soon." I stared at that message for what felt like an hour. If I handed over the journal, Vanessa wouldn't just lose her lover. She'd be dragged down with him. Accessory. Co-conspirator. Maybe worse. That was the whole point, wasn't it? Controlled leverage. But there was a catch. If I turned it in too soon, she'd see it coming. She might destroy the phone. Or vanish with the kids. Or, worse, warn Derek. So, I devised something more elaborate. First, I had copies of the journal printed. Not all of it, just the incriminating parts. I sealed them in an envelope and sent it anonymously to Derek's firm marked urgent, internal compliance. Let them chew on that. Then I crafted an email using a throwaway account. One Derek couldn't trace. Subject line, "You've got bigger problems than your affair." Inside the email, I wrote, "She's more loyal with her pen than with her silence. The journal is out. If you want to know who has it, meet me at Marlowe's, Saturday, 9 p.m. Come alone. Wear something gray. Or don't. Maybe just wait for the feds instead." I hit send. And then I waited. Saturday came too slowly. The hours ticked by like molasses sliding uphill. Vanessa spent most of the day distracted. She left for a spa appointment at 4:30 p.m. I didn't ask questions. She didn't offer answers. By 8:45, I was sitting at the bar in Marlowe's, 2 seats away from the window. I wore a ball cap, a jacket I never wore in public, and kept my head down over a whiskey I didn't touch. At exactly 9:01 p.m., Derek walked in. Gray blazer. No tie. Phone in hand. He looked around casually, but there was tension in the way his shoulders moved, his eyes darted. He sat in a booth facing the door. Alone. I watched him for a while. He ordered a drink. Checked his watch. Scanned the room. No sign of Vanessa. I pulled out my phone, snapped a picture, then texted Brandon. He showed. Gray blazer. Booth near the back. "This is real." Brandon replied. "Got it. We'll escalate. Keep your distance." Then I did something that surprised even me. I got up and left. Quietly. No confrontation. No grand speech. I had what I needed. Now I just needed the final piece. Vanessa's journal. When I got home, the house was silent. The kids were asleep, as always. Vanessa was in the shower. I walked past the closed bathroom door, went straight to the guest room, and lifted the mattress on the bench seat. Gone. The journal was gone. Panic prickled under my skin. Had she noticed it had been moved? Had I left fingerprints? Was she onto me? I checked the usual spots. Nothing. Then I heard the water turn off. I returned to our bedroom, sat on the bed, pretended to scroll through news. My heart raced as she walked in, toweling her hair. She looked at me, something unreadable in her eyes. "Can we talk?" she asked, voice soft. I nodded slowly. She sat down beside me. Have you been feeling distant lately?" That was her opening. I couldn't speak. I just looked at her, and for the first time, I saw not my wife, not the mother of my children, but a woman calculating her words carefully, as if laying the groundwork for a story she might need to tell twice. "I found something," I said, my voice low. "Something in the guest room." Her face didn't change, but her hand twitched slightly on her lap. "A journal," I added. "Yours." She didn't deny it. Instead, she looked at the floor. "I knew you would, eventually." I waited. "I started writing it after my dad passed," she said. "It was supposed to be therapy, but it turned into something else. A place where I could be honest." "Honest," I said, almost laughing. "I never meant to hurt you." "But you did." She looked at me then, and for a moment, I couldn't read her at all. I think I should stay with my sister for a few days, just until we both clear our heads. I wanted to say no. I wanted to scream. But instead, I nodded. Take your time. She left that night. I let her go. I knew she'd be watching for signs, checking if anything was missing, making sure her secrets stayed buried. But they weren't buried anymore. 3 days later, Brandon called. We've opened a case. It's going to get noisy soon. I asked him if Vanessa would be implicated. He paused. That depends. Did she benefit from the fraud? Did she help conceal it? Right now, she's just a witness. I hung up and walked out onto the porch. The sky was overcast. Everything felt suspended in that strange calm before a storm. Inside, my children laughed over a cartoon. Innocent, safe, for now. But I knew what was coming. And so did Vanessa. Because that night, while she was gone, I found the journal. She had hidden it again, but not well enough. And inside it, on the very last page, was a note. If you're reading this, I know it's over. But there's one thing you never figured out. It was never just Derek. The words blurred as I read them again. It was never just Derek. I sat frozen, the journal open in my lap, the silence of the house louder than any scream. The room pulsed with shadows, and the words sat there, heavy, poisonous, smug. Another man? That possibility had haunted the edges of my thoughts, but only as a paranoid whisper. Now it stared me in the face. I flipped through the final pages of the journal again, more carefully this time. The writing changed near the end. The tone grew more erratic, less poetic, more raw, almost panicked. March 3rd. Derek is becoming possessive. He's always been in control, but now he's acting like he owns me. He asked if I deleted all my messages. I said yes. I lied. March 12th. He suspects something. I think he knows I haven't been entirely faithful to him either. He asked about the other phone. I told him I lost it. March 15th. I told him I'm done. Derek didn't take it well. Said he has proof. Said if I hurt him, he could hurt me worse. I laughed. I don't think I should have. There was no name. No hint. Just him. Another him. I'd been so focused on Derek that I hadn't considered the possibility of a second affair. But now, I looked back at the gaps in her story, at the quiet Thursday nights she claimed were yoga classes, the Saturdays she insisted she needed to catch up on errands. Maybe Derek hadn't been her only escape. I ran my fingers down the page and paused on something scribbled in the margin. The Fairy House. 3 small words. Underscored twice. It didn't mean anything to me, at first. But then I remembered a story from years ago. Vanessa once mentioned a client who owned a lakeside property they sometimes used for retreats. Back then, I hadn't listened too closely. But something about the way she'd smiled when she said it, the dreamy tone, the faraway look, made sense now. I opened my laptop and searched her text history on the cloned phone. Nothing. She'd wiped most of the recent threads. I moved to her calendar app, checking for anything that stood out. One recurring event. FH, 3 p.m. Fridays. Once a month. For nearly a year. FH. Fairy House. The next one was this week. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I hesitated. I wasn't sure I wanted to know. But then I did something I hadn't done before. I called in a favor. Years ago, I'd helped a friend, Jeremy, launch a secure data recovery firm. He owed me more than a few late nights and silent investors. I called him now, no pleasantries. Can you recover deleted data from a clone backup? Depends. Texts. Yeah. iOS. Do you have the clone? I do. He gave me an upload link. Give me 24 hours. That night, I barely slept. In the morning, Vanessa returned. No warning. Just the sound of the front door closing and her voice calling from the hall. Hey, are you home? I met her in the kitchen. She looked tired, hollow under the eyes. There was no spark in her tone, just caution, like someone entering a familiar room now littered with traps. I just wanted to see the kids, she said. I'm not here to fight. I nodded. They're at school. She lingered, looking around, as if unsure where to sit. You read the last page, she said eventually. Yes. She swallowed. It's not what you think. That made me laugh. I couldn't help it. I think, I said slowly, that my wife had 2 affairs. One with a man now under federal investigation. The other with someone I haven't identified yet. I think you documented it all in this journal, like a twisted memoir. I think you lied to me for over a year. So no, Vanessa. I think it's exactly what I think. Her face tightened, but she didn't cry. The other one, it wasn't an affair. I stared. He was someone I knew before you, she said. Before we were married. I ran into him last year. At first, it was just lunch. Then, her voice trailed off. Who? She didn't answer. I already know about Derek, I said. And I'm this close to handing your journal to the FBI. So if you're going to hold back now, think very carefully about what that gets you. She finally looked me in the eye. Andrew, she said quietly. It was like a slap. Andrew, my former best friend. My best man. The godfather of our daughter. He'd moved out of state 5 years ago after his marriage imploded. We spoke less and less. A few awkward texts around the holidays. I hadn't thought about him in months. He reached out last year, she said. Said he was back in town. I didn't mean for it to go that far. I felt something inside me go cold. Not rage. Not even heartbreak. Just a quiet, bone-deep vacancy. You slept with him? She nodded, ashamed. Only once. Then he moved again. He was just a moment. I stood there, breathing slowly. She watched me, waiting for an explosion. But I just picked up the journal from the table and held it out to her. Finish it. She frowned. What? Write the ending. You've written everything else. You owe me that much. She looked down at the worn cover. What happens if I do? I don't know, I said. But you'll never get another chance. She took the journal in both hands like it was something sacred. Then she left. 2 days later, Jeremy called. I recovered the threads, he said. Text logs, some deleted voice notes. One of the contacts is under an alias, just a letter. But the messages match the days on your calendar. FH events. What's the letter? Just a. Andrew. He sent the files. I read every message. Listened to every recording. Some were short, casual. Others were haunting. One from Vanessa. It's different with you. I don't have to pretend. And his voice. We missed our window. But maybe it opens again someday. I downloaded everything to a secure drive. Put it in a locked case. The next morning, the news broke. Derek Foster was arrested. Fraud, obstruction, financial misconduct. His firm was being dissolved. Clients were in panic. 2 other partners were cooperating. Vanessa wasn't named, but the FBI showed up at her office. Just questions, for now. When she returned home that evening, pale and exhausted, she handed me the journal. I opened to the last page. I never set out to destroy my marriage. But I let the cracks widen because I didn't want to feel ordinary anymore. Derek made me feel powerful. Andrew made me feel seen. But neither of them saw what I had. What I was risking. I loved my husband. I think I still do. But I couldn't find the version of myself that loved him. I buried her under lies. I hope one day he reads this and understands that the person writing these words is not the same woman he married. She died the day she chose to kiss someone else and didn't stop herself. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I closed the journal. Vanessa sat silently across from me. For the first time in weeks, I spoke without anger. I'm going to take the kids for a while. She nodded, eyes rimmed with red. I'm not doing this out of hate, I added. But you need to rebuild alone. I understand. I stood to leave. Her voice stopped me at the door. What are you going to do with the journal? I turned slowly. Tell the truth. 2 months had passed. In the quiet town where everyone knew each other's names and waved from their driveways, word of Derek Foster's arrest spread like wildfire. The newspapers ran polite headlines, local consultant under federal investigation. But the whispers were far less civil. Behind every closed door, people were adding their own details, true or not. I stayed out of it. After taking the kids and leaving Vanessa, I rented a modest 2-bedroom house just a few streets over from our old one. I kept it simple, neutral, a safe harbor where James and Sonia could sleep without hearing the weight of adult failures creak through the walls. They asked questions, of course. Why isn't Mom here? Are you mad at her? Did she do something bad? I told them only what they needed. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes. And when that happens, we need space to think and heal. They accepted it, more or less. But every time they hugged me before bed, I wondered how many of my lies would one day be exposed to them, pieced together like puzzle edges they'd grow into. The journal stayed in a locked drawer beside my bed. Sometimes I thought about throwing it in the fire. Other nights, I'd stare at it, debating whether to reread it again. I never did. Not after the last page. It was enough. Brandon called me again in mid-May. The case against Derek was intensifying. They had seized his records, uncovered offshore accounts, traced shell corporations. He wouldn't go to trial. He'd cut a deal. But part of the agreement involved a full disclosure of accomplices. Your wife's name came up, Brandon said carefully. I closed my eyes. How bad? Not terrible, but not clean. She received 2 wire transfers connected to shell companies. Small amounts, $2,000 here, $3,000 there, but they raise flags. She's not being charged, but she's been summoned for a deposition. Will the kids be affected? No, but you might want to speak with a lawyer. I already had. My divorce attorney was sharp, quiet, and efficient. When I told her everything, yes, everything, she didn't blink. Your case is strong, she said, especially with infidelity and potential criminal exposure. If you want sole custody, we can argue it, especially if she's still under federal scrutiny. But I hesitated. Despite everything, I didn't want to weaponize the kids. I didn't want revenge that left them with scars. Instead, we drafted an agreement. Joint custody, but weighted toward me. School nights, major holidays, all medical and educational decisions mine. Vanessa would have weekends, rotating visits, and no overnight guests for the first year. She signed it without contest. I met her at the lawyer's office for the final review. She looked thinner, older, like the guilt had chewed her down to the bone. I know you're doing me a kindness, she said softly. I'm doing the right thing, I corrected. For the kids. She nodded, eyes glassy. And for you. For me, I said. I'm walking away with the truth. She smiled faintly. I've lost the right to ask for anything. But I do want to say thank you for not turning me in. You could have. You were never the target, I said. But you were part of the damage. We signed the papers. No dramatic last words. No tears. Just pens scratching across documents that once would have broken my heart to imagine. That evening, I took the kids for ice cream. We sat on a bench, the summer sun low in the sky, and I watched them giggle with chocolate-smudged faces, the sound of their laughter cutting through the noise in my mind like wind through curtains. It wasn't perfect, but it was peace. Later that week, I received a letter in the mail, handwritten, no return address. The handwriting was unmistakable. Vanessa. I considered not opening it, letting it sit untouched until time faded the ink. But I owed it to the man I used to be, the husband who once believed in her completely, to read it. Dear Matthew, I won't ask you to respond. I won't even ask you to forgive me. I just wanted to say the things I should have said years ago, when there was still time. I don't know why I started writing the journal. I think, in some twisted way, I wanted to be caught, to be seen. Not because I wanted to hurt you, but because I had grown so invisible in my own skin that writing felt like the only way to still be real. I chose selfishness over love, repeatedly, and there's no excuse for it. Derek gave me escape. Andrew gave me nostalgia, but neither gave me what I already had, what I threw away. You were solid, reliable, steady, and I mistook that for boring. I see now how dangerous that mistake was. I've started therapy, not to salvage anything, but to understand myself better. To make sure I never again become the version of me who thought secrets were safety. I see the kids every week, and I know they're thriving because of you. You don't have to respond. But if you ever want to ask me anything, you can. No more lies. Not ever again. V. I folded the letter and tucked it into the back of the journal. Not out of sentimentality, out of documentation. Let it live among the rest of her confessions, where it belonged. Weeks turned to months. School ended. Summer began. I took the kids camping. We built fires, told ghost stories, caught frogs, and let them go. I began to remember who I was before the betrayal. Not the husband, not the spy, just me. One night, I found myself on the back porch after the kids had gone to sleep, staring out at the stars, barefoot, drink in hand. And I thought about revenge. Not the dramatic kind. Not the destruction of her life. No, the most satisfying revenge had already happened. Vanessa had to live in the wreckage she built with her own hands. She had to face the truth every morning in the mirror, in the hollow spaces of a bed that no longer held my trust, in the eyes of children who now looked to someone else for comfort. I didn't need to punish her. I just needed to be done. And I was.